Hi everybody, tonight I'm going to make It's a Girl baby wreath. I'm using a 14-inch metal standard wreath ring and 21-inch deco mesh in a soft pink with a metallic foil, so it has a shimmer. I will be attaching the mesh to, I'm doing the poof method, and I will be actually attaching those poofs to the frame using zip ties. I will go around the inner ring and then the outer and then into the center. So I start by creating a kind of a neat end, and I put a zip tie around that end and tie it off. And then I cut it off and make a very neat beginning to my wreath. So I take that and I will attach it to the first crossbar, and I will be using each of the crossbars. That will be where I'm actually going to fasten each of my poofs. These zip ties that I'm using are 4 inches. You can use longer ones. It does make it somewhat easier if you're not used to using zip ties. So how I make my poofs is, so between the bars I've already measured it is 7 inches. So I'm looking for longer than 7-inch poofs. So typically I measure them out to be 10 to 12 inches. So I will attach that first poof to the next crossbar using the 4-inch zip tie. Pull it tight, cut off the excess, and then create my next poof. So there you go, I'm going across the crossbars. And in case you can't see, I'm kind of going a little bit diagonally across them so that they are really truly anchored in place. And this is the base wreath. So I'm making a poof base, but I'm going to add, and I'm using 21-inch deco mesh, which I typically use for my base. I'm going to be adding 10-inch deco mesh, and I'll be creating bow ties throughout. So although it looks like, as I start to progress, it may not look like a true circle, a round shape, know that when I apply the bow ties to a degree are that what's going to dictate the shape of the overall design. Excuse me. And obviously if it was a boy baby, I would be changing out the pink for the soft blue. And if you're a beginner and this is your first, maybe your first deco mesh wreath, as you work them, you'll get used to the kind of size that the ruffle needs to be, the poof needs to be, and you'll be able to freehand it. But what you're seeing me do right now is I'm about to transition to the outer ring. So as I apply that very last poof, I'm actually going to have it directional so that it's starting to go around to the outer circle. And that's what you can see. I have it kind of going off to the left, kind of underneath to the outer, so that I can start going around the outer ring. just setting myself up for the next run round with the mesh. So again with the 4-inch cable tie. And if you don't want to use, and I say cable tie, zip tie, same thing. If you don't want to use those, you can use chenille stems. When I'm making this base, I'm going to apply quite a lot of products. So I'm kind of mindful of the size of the base to begin with. So I'm making a pretty, not a small, but I'm not making an oversized base because I'm kind of aiming for maybe 24 inches wide, because by the time I add my bow ties throughout and ribbon, it's pretty much always going to finish around 26 plus inches. So if you're new to Decomesh wreath making, when you go to buy your frame, so if you're thinking, okay, I want a 24-inch mesh wreath, or I want a 26-inch, for instance, when you go to purchase your form, your frame, you're actually looking for a 14-inch or thereabouts, because the frame will always be smaller than the overall size that it finishes up to be. And I'm just showing you that by using the zip ties, you do get a very tidy base underneath. And if you do like this video, please subscribe, because I plan to make quite a number of videos. I also created a Facebook group if you're interested, and that Facebook group is called Decomesh and Wreath Making Group. Sorry, I had to think then. And it's a relatively new group. There's about 250 members, and we have many people in the group that are beginners through advanced. And I also have a craft supply store, which is called picklescraftshop.com, and I'll be putting those links in the description. But the majority of the products that I use at the time I create the video are in stock in my store. And what you're seeing me do now is I'm going to transition to the center ring, and work my way around it. And so I've turned the mesh and pointed it inward so that I can actually make that transition easily. And then I will carry on, just as before, going around the center wreath ring and attaching to the crossbars. To make a poof base, which is what you're seeing here, you really have to use 21-inch mesh. There's a lot of 10-inch mesh available now, and 12-inch. But to create this type of base, you have to use 21-inch mesh, because it's the only mesh that will give you this kind of volume and effect. But a lot of the designs that you do beyond this point will utilize 10-inch mesh and ribbon, of course. So I carry on round. And any gaps that, appear to the eye at this stage, just know that they're not going to be there very long, because I'm going to be applying 10-inch Decomesh bow ties, as we call them, into those gaps primarily, and so that will fill the design very quickly. And although I'm using zip ties with a basic metal frame, you can now purchase wreath forms which come already with sort of chenille stems attached and placed throughout. And if you're a beginner, that's quite useful because it guides the eye to where you need to apply your mesh. Now what I'm doing here is I'm about to apply my very last poof. So I'm applying 2 cable ties, zip ties, about 1.5 inches apart, and I'm going to cut between the two and detach the roll. And the reason why I do this is because this roll now will store very nicely and will not continue to fray. So that's why I create that kind of end to the roll to really preserve it ready for reuse. So now I just need to pick up my last poof and apply it to the last crossbar. So the pink looks really pretty already. So now I'm going to transition to 10-inch mesh. I'm just showing you what I'm going to put in the center. And that's a baby bottom wreath enhancement embellishment. And those are available in my store at picklecraftshop.com. And various baby ribbons I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using pink, it's a girl, but there is another one that's a baby celebratory wreath, which is the one with the lemon outer edge. So there's the pink. Two types of pink. But when I was selecting my ribbon, I also found another baby celebratory wreath that had quite a lot of lemon in it, which is this one. Has a little bit of blue and green, etc. So I decided I really like the addition of the lemon. So I'm going to be putting that in, but I'm going to be using a kind of a background ribbon just to make them pop, and that is a yellow polka dot ribbon. And all of these ribbons are, and I'm just showing you that I could use pink as well, but I've chosen for this particular instance to go with the lemon because I really want some contrast to the pink. I don't want it to just look all pink. And all of these ribbons are wired ribbons, and that's very important because wired ribbon will actually pose so you can put it exactly where you want it. Now the 10-inch mesh, at this point I could choose any of these colors. But because I'm going to be having the addition of the yellow, I have decided that I'm probably going to go with the deep pink because I don't want to introduce too many colors and make it just a little bit too kind of confusing to the eye. I want to kind of stay with a theme. I want a additional contrasting color, which is the lemon, the yellow, but I don't necessarily want to create too much of the green. So I'm going to go with the deep pink, and this is 10-inch Deca mesh. And I'm just creating a nice fine line to start with. So I'm going to make some bow ties. And I've decided that I'm going to go for, just working out in my head what I want to do here. It really depends on how much volume you want. So I've decided to go with 15-inch bow ties. And what you do is you turn them so the finished ends are out, and you sort of walk your fingers up through the center. and you pinch it and you create what is known as a bow tie. And I'm going to take a cable tie, a zip tie, and I'm going to find a crossbar. So I'm going to dig into the poof wreath, the mesh wreath, and find a crossbar and attach it. And I'm going to put in quite a sizable number of these. Typically, I typically put in maybe 15, sometimes 12, but typically about 15 of them, because I like the effect very much. It creates a lot of movement, and it just creates a really beautiful overall design in combination with the poof method, which is the base wreath. So I'm just going to cut a number of these ready. And I'm cutting them to 15 inches. "15 inches" really gives quite a dominant effect within the finished wreath, so I like 15 inches. But I have seen people use 20, 25 inches for bow ties, and again, that gives a beautiful effect too. So it's really try and error, but most of the time I use 15 inches. And you can pre-cut your mesh. If I'd been more organized, I think I would have done that. But you can pre-cut your mesh before, attempting your design, so that you can just keep going. So I dig in, and I know where I want to put it, so I just dig in and find a bar to attach it to. And I will say that I've been using zip ties for many, many years, so I've gotten very good at it. I've got the knack as such. So if you're not used to using zip ties, I wouldn't purchase 4-inch. Maybe make it a little bit easier on yourself and go for 5 or 6-inch zip ties. Which you can buy anywhere. You can buy them at Walmart, eBay, etc. They're very cheap. And the ones I'm using here appear to be white, but they're classed as clear. But once they're in, you can't see them. And as you can see, now that I'm getting a few in there, it's starting to really come together, the overall design. The addition of the bow ties really does help bring it together, the design together. And, having a base mesh and then a contrasting mesh. And the base mesh has a metallic foil in it, so it's kind of shimmery. Whereas the bow ties is just a typical pink mesh with no foil. And the combination of the two I think makes it very attractive. But you can use metallic 10-inch mesh too. It just really depends on what you think works and what the overall looks good. And this particular method, really, I'm creating a base for any type of wreath, really. I could suddenly change this up and make it a Valentine's wreath. All I need to do is put some ribbon in there that has some sort of Valentine's theme, and I've changed it up. Or, maybe it's a spring summer, the addition of maybe some flowers, roses, etc. That would too, because you're creating a base. And I've just posted another video where I'm using a cream 21-inch mesh base in the poof method, and I'm applying 10-inch Deca Mesh in Tiffany blue. And you can see if you look at that video, it creates a very different look, but essentially it's the same method. So what I'm showing you here is, how to create a great base. What you choose to do beyond it and the colors you choose is totally up to you. And this video, I actually was live on Facebook in my group and on my store page. And so occasionally you'll see me pause and I am talking because I'm talking to the group because they pose me questions as I go. But I try to be as timely as possible so that you can get, a lot of great information and maybe some ideas without being, sitting there watching for hours. So it's coming together, but you can see, if you look at the wreath as a whole, you can see the gaps where it's just saying, please put another bow tie here. And I'm a wreath maker. I've been making wreaths since probably the 1980s, when I was pretty young as a teenager. And I'm based in North Carolina in the USA. So making bow ties, just walking your fingers up through the center. Remember, the outer edge is the sealed edge. Okay? And look at it, it's really coming together and it's very pretty. It's a very pretty overall design. And you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, my little dog is walking around. Ever so often he kind of looks up. I have two little Bichon Frises, and if I disappear into my craft room too long, they come kind of looking for me, wondering what I'm doing. So I go through and I with my eyes, start making decisions on how many more bow ties do I need. So I'm cutting it to 15 inches. This is 10-inch mesh. And although I go through pretty quick, I've been making wreaths for many, many years. So take your time, practice makes perfect. And so you can take as much time as you need to create that base. So I'm just showing you where I'm actually applying the bow tie. The good news about zip ties over the chenille stems is that you trim the excess as you go. What you find is when you turn over the base, or even turn over the finished wreath, it's very neat. It's very neat and tidy. And I'm going to apply my ribbon using zip ties also. The other thing I was going to mention about mesh, deco mesh, is seasonally some of the Dollar Tree stores will carry mesh. But I will tell you that there is, not all mesh is created equal, basically. And that is, you will find that the very cheap alternatives in Dollar Tree are really good to practice with, definitely. But they are prone to fraying. So if you are creating a nice wreath for your front door just to see you over a holiday, then Decomesh from Dollar Tree is not a bad idea. But if you are creating wreaths to sell, which I've sold who knows how many, probably hundreds or thousands, I should say, since I started many years ago, what happens is people will write to me and they reorder, right? And when they reorder, they're very fond of telling me how much pleasure the one that they previously purchased was and how they can't wait till the following year to redisplay it. Well, some of these that they're referencing may be 4 years ago, 5 years ago that they purchased. So by choosing Decomesh that has a certain amount of quality to it, you are giving or selling an item with lasting enjoyment for your customers. So just, it is worth transitioning to a really nice quality mesh. And the price point on the quality mesh is not extreme. Most rolls of Decomesh come in under $10 for the 21-inch, and around $5-6 for 10-inch, and that will get you relatively good quality mesh. But as you get better at creating wreaths, you start to understand the difference of quality and the overall effect it gives. But practicing with the cheaper price point, such as Dollar Tree mesh, is not a bad decision, because it enables you to not invest too much money while you're practicing. So I'm going to start cutting my ribbon towels, and you have to look at the depth of your wreath, and you have to before you make a decision on how long you think they should be. So I'm going to start with a 14-inch, but when I place my first one, I may come back out and say, okay, the next one I think I need a little bit more or a little bit less. So the first one's always kind of the deciding one. And I typically go in with 14-inch towels. I'm folding it in half ready. And I'm just going to fishtail the bottom by turning it around, kind of folding it and just going diagonal, so that I can get that kind of fishtail, dovetail end. And I'm laying the feature ribbon on the top and putting the contrast ribbon underneath. So again, I'm going to use a cable tie, a zip tie, and go down into the wreath and find a crossbar to attach it to. And when I've got the first one in, that's usually when I can gauge whether I feel that I've kind of hit exactly the right length for these ribbon towels. And because this is wired ribbon, I'm able to pose it to a degree how I like. But I don't do too much of that until the finished wreath. I kind of get it a little bit in position, just so that I can see kind of the length and how it works. And but you know, when I've got it ready and I'm really happy with the overall design, then I will spend some time just making sure that all my ribbon towels are in position and look really good where they are and how they are. If you're a wreath maker, and most of, you know, a lot of people watching this will be, most wreath makers will keep a certain number of contrast ribbons available, so they will buy them in the sort of larger 50-yard rolls, so that you know, they have a blue and a pink and a lemon and, you know, so on, just so that when they create, they always have this contrast ribbon that they know they're going to use. And my contrast ribbons tonight are the yellow polka dot and the pink polka dot ribbon, which you can see me using right now. So fold it in half and then pick up a cable tie or work out where you're going to put it. And I'm alternating colors. And wreath making is very, very popular craft. It's very enjoyable. I believe that most people are able to get reasonably good at this craft. It's very pleasurable, and it's a great craft for giving, I think. So, you know, around just before the holiday season, or if there's an event in the family, such as a baby, which is the instance with this one, or a wedding, etc., I will often make deco mesh wreaths for gifts. But of course, you can also sell them. And there's a large community of sellers on websites such as Etsy. And, you know, a number of them are doing very, very well. And when I pulled out the, I'm just looking, yeah, I've reduced the ribbon tails to 14 inches. That initial one was 15, because after I placed it, I just felt that there was overall about 1 inch excess. So I reduced it to 14. And when I was selecting my colors, you know, I did this live on Facebook, and a couple of people said, "Oh, I'm not so sure about the yellow," before I'd even placed it. And I pretty much, whenever I create a wreath, I want a contrasting color. So on this occasion, I picked the kind of yellow lemon. I think it's just thinking in your mind whether those colors have some kind of complementary relationship to each other. And pink and kind of lemon, very babyish, and I kind of felt like it would definitely work. And I'm just showing you a little bit of a close-up there. So I'm pretty happy so far, and I like the addition of the yellow because of the sheer volume of pink I have going on. It gives it just another dimension that I'm looking for. And again, if you were creating this at home yourself, you can pre-cut your ribbon. So I went with 15. That's pretty long, and I transitioned very quickly on the second one to 14. I think if you want to be safe, 14 is probably a good safe number. But as you get better, you're probably going to want to place that very first one just to be able to gauge, the length. But I'm cutting them as I go because I'm doing this live. But once the base had been created and that first one was in and I decided it was going to be 14 inches, I could essentially stop what I'm doing and just cut all my ribbon tails and come back to the base, fully armed with all my ribbon tails. But as I was doing this live on Facebook, I was putting it together step by step with the group. And so that once I have all my ribbon in, I'm going to put the baby bottom into the center. But then I do have some further embellishment. I managed to get some sort of baby shower kind of favors, for the table or what have you, little decorations. And what I managed to get was some pink sort of miniature pacifiers, some little kind of diaper pins, and a couple of, I think I got 4 little It's a Girl rattles, just kind of little party favors, baby shower favors, so that I could actually add them at the end for extra kind of fun. So I fold it in half and then I go in with a zip tie. And it's coming together, as you can see. I'm pretty pleased with it by now. And if you're interested in looking at a selection of ribbon and decomesh, please check out my craft store. It's called picklescraftshop.com. And as I said, I'm based in North Carolina in the USA. So there's my baby bud. Just kind of looking at it and, making sure that I have kind of creating an overall design that's going to work with it. And some of the colors that are in there, the blues and the greens, obviously the pink and the lemon, they're going to be replicated in some of the embellishments in the rattles and diaper bins, etc. So I'll be able to make those colors pop a little bit by introducing them in other ways. And although I don't have a kit for this particular wreath presently, I typically will create a video, a tutorial of how I created the wreath, and then put together a kit to complement it so that you're able to do it at home and replicate what you see. And by putting a kit together, I can supply exactly what you need versus, large spools of ribbon that maybe, really are in excess of just one project. And here's the little embellishments, the favours that I have. And I'm going to be putting those in soon. And I'm going to use cable ties as much as I can for those also. Another way to put embellishments on, such as, diaper pins, rattles, etc., would be to use floral wire as well. So as I said, this really is a general base. It's just the colours that make it a certain theme. So you could replicate this method as a base for any design pretty much. And it will create a very full, kind of airy deco mesh wreath. And please subscribe to my channel. And once you've placed all your ribbon, to a degree you can come in and add more if you create your wreath and then at a later time you decide, okay, there's like a gap there that I need to fill it. So you can always add more. I like my finished wreaths to be really quite pretty from every angle, so I'm inclined to use quite a lot of ribbon towels. And I'm just thinking about the pink pacifier and whether I can get that in using a zip tie, which I believe I can. So I will be doing that. So 14-inch ribbon towels continue, but I'm nearly done. And I'm just showing you that zip ties come in many colors. So, and I purchased those off of eBay for $1, and that was with free shipping for 100, 4-inch. And I typically I use mostly the clear white, but it's, during Christmas, etc., I use quite a lot of green and red too. And if you have any questions, please comment on the video, because I do get alerted if there is a comment or a question as such, and I'm always try to be very helpful and give you any kind of feedback that maybe you need if you need clarification or you're struggling with a particular technique, etc. So I hope you feel inspired to have a go if you haven't tried this before. So here's my centerpiece, my reef embellishment, which usually comes with wires. So I'm going to work out what position I want it in. I want it reasonably deep in there. I don't want it to be stood out too much. And I'm putting on a slight angle because I think that would be more of a complementary overall design. So I'm turning it over, finding the wires, and I will take those wires, at least one of them, through the mesh there, which will make it look more tidy but also really anchor that embellishment. So once the wire's through, and then I take it up to one of the frame bars and tie it off. And I'd put it reasonably tight, but I won't tighten them completely until I've turned it over and I'm happy with the placement. But I find with these embellishment kind of pieces, it's pretty easy to get it right. And these embellishments for wreath making, there's so many now, you know, seasonal ones. There's bunnies for Easter, Santas and elves and snowmen for Christmas, etc., and penguins, scarecrows for the fall, what have you. There's so many on the market. It really has made a great difference to this art form. So, okay, the baby butt is in, and I'm tucking up the toes because I really like the little toes there. That's a nice feature. And I'm showing you kind of what it looks like overall. So I'm happy with that placement. So now I got pacifiers, rattles and pins, and I will start adding them throughout just to keep the fun going, you know, just a fun baby wreath. So I'm going to use a zip tie, and what I do is I kind of go in from behind and then tie it off, and just before I put it really tight, I turn the kind of the closing edge of it so it's a little bit hidden towards the back. And these little party favors for they use for baby showers are great for this. And you really can't go wrong. You can really much place them anywhere because, you know, they're fun. They're not the whole design, so they can be put randomly throughout. And I created this one as a gift for my husband's niece who is expecting a little girl shortly. And that cable, zip tie rather, that I just used wouldn't actually close, so I'm just replacing it with a better one. And at the end of this video, I will show kind of a short kind of video of it hanging so that you can see, and some close-up pictures so that you can see how it turned out and get it in a better perspective. So I'm just adding another ribbon tail because I feel that there's a gap there that would suggest that I've missed I've come off my design and I need a little extra to balance it out. There you go, much better. So like I was saying, the longer you work with it, the more you start to wonder, okay, I think I missed a little bit. And even when I have my wreath complete, I will hang it in the house for, a day or two, and just so that I can kind of look at it with kind of fresh eyes. And typically when I do that, I will often find a gap that wasn't really obvious, and I'll just come behind and just add an extra piece of ribbon or an embellishment of some type. But I like my finished wreath to be really eye-catching from every angle. So, I'm always looking for what can I add to make it even better. And as I was stating, it's my intention to put quite a few videos on here. So please subscribe, because I'll be doing Easter bunnies and 4th of July, etc. All the holidays. I usually create for all of the holidays. But this is a relatively new channel, so after July I'll start working on Christmas. So you can put a felt backing onto your finished wreath if you want to kind of hide all your workings. That's optional, but it's quite a nice thing to do if you are going to sell your wreath. I think it's a nice gesture to have put some kind of felt backing. And what I do is just take a piece of felt and use the frame and cut around it and as a template, and then just kind of tie it on in a number of positions. So although I have a lot of my embellishment I'm still, as I'm looking at it from every angle, I'm finding little spots where I feel, okay, that just needs another ribbon tie tails. But it was very intentional to have a lot of ribbon in this design because I wanted it to be very girly and fun and kind of airy, with quite a good amount of volume too. So I hope you found this interesting, and maybe you're going to dabble a little bit in deco mesh wreath making, or just fun to watch. I'm glad you joined me, and please subscribe to my channel. And I will follow up with some close-ups and some, just some overall, the wreath hanging on a door so that you can kind of get it in perspective. So thanks everybody for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed spending this time with me and learning, hopefully, some of the techniques. So here it is, finished, hanging on the door, and I just want to give you a kind of a three-dimensional video tour so that you can see how it ended up. Lots of volume, lots of interesting components to kind of catch the eye. So it just enabled me to give you a kind of a overall how it finished. And overall, I'm very pleased with it. I think it's very charming. I think it's going to be a great gift. And, you know, this would be a great decoration for a baby shower or on the door to welcome the baby home. And mum, of course. So it's hanging at the moment kind of on the back of a door just so that you could see. And here's some close-ups. So thank you for joining me. And if you enjoyed spending this time with me, please subscribe and check out my Facebook group, Decomesh and Wreath Making group on Facebook. And I'll put all the links in the description of this video. So bye, guys.